Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for update 99, Alpha 1 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, it is the start of a new alpha cycle, which usually means I have to work on some boring things, so I give you folks a toy to distract you from all the boring things that I need to work on. So let's take a look at that toy. It's actually a set of toys that is a refresh of a series that has been in the game, but were sort of accrued over time, made by separate artists, which means that like their magazines didn't really fit each other super well. And so let's take a look. We have, courtesy of Sergey, who did our wonderful 93R, a remake of our M9A1 with under rail there. Let's pop that in. Let's just get a nice, good shot of that with the lighting. Beautiful finish work. Super pretty. And of course, just a personal favorite. Wonderful. We have got a remake of the M9A3, which is in FDE finish. And let's pull that out. They're 17 round magazine. Personally, I'm not a huge fan. I get why they did this to it, but without the little hump on the back, I'm like, oh, its silhouette just isn't as nice, but I know those are minor concerns compared to the operational needs of the platform. Good stuff. And to go with those, while we were filling out the set, we have the original M9, which does not have a pick rail on the underside. I believe this went into production in 1985, whereas I think the M9A1 with the pick rail was 2006. And so that means that in the take and hold weapon pools, these two will show up in the modern weapon pool. This will show up in Soldier of Fortune Frankie. Good stuff. And then lastly, and I know some of you probably saw a post of this, an image of it on the Discord, but a long requested and a personal favorite, we also have the 92FS in inoxidizable form, i.e. in stainless steel, with just a beautiful finish to it. I get why some of you really dig them when they look like this. Good stuff. Good stuff. So there we have it. We have those, and they have been tuned. And importantly now, there's now better mag cross compatibility between these and the 93R. All the mags should be cross-fitting. They're not absolutely perfect with the PX4 and CX4 magazines, because those were made by a different artist a long time ago. But I made the fit about as good as I can make it. I should also mention that in the process of working on these have a little more of the quote-unquote correct detail. You will notice now that the sort of barrel moves back slightly as it is supposed to with this series. There's just a good deal more detail in there. Oh, and the magazine button now actually gets depressed as well. So it is always nice, just as time passes, to tune these up and improve things as as appropriate. And of course, the nice thing about the work that I did on this is that I was able to do a optimization pass in terms of animation for all handguns. So there should be very subtle performance improvements across the board for all handguns because of the work that I did on these. Also totally got the like pistol transfer bar there moving. Wonderful stuff. Just love this series. Anywho, let's jump over to the proving grounds and talk about what else I have been working on. So, the next thing that I'm going to show you folks is not actually in today's alpha. This is a copy of the proving grounds I have for testing other things, as none of this new stuff is in the item database yet. But I wanted to show you some of the work that I've been doing on basically destructible props and environment objects. The various props that you see here are part of an environment pack that I have a couple of my contractors working on for something that I've not announced yet. I haven't described, so please don't ask. That will come eventually. But what I want to show you is some of the work that I've been doing to try to make more reliable, interesting, and physics optimized destructible props for the game in general. As let's be frank, a lot of the combat environments in H3 are a little sparse, and a lot of the destructible props in the sandbox scenes have been inconsistently implemented. You can't spawn them, you can't duplicate them, things like that. So this is all part of a larger effort to sort of bring more of the game's destructible elements into shared systems that will eventually allow you to spawn props that you want to muck around with in any of the sandbox scenes and mess around with them and cause hijinks, or just set yourself up a fun environment to plink in. So let's get out our trusty testing hammer and take a look at what we got here. Let's see, where should we start? These aren't super durable, so one of the things that I have been experimenting with is in creating essentially a second class of interactable object in terms of your ability to pick it up. Because like right now with this hammer, I get the sort of gravity glove functionality with it, and I can laser grab it as well. But obviously I don't necessarily want to make every single object that can be picked up respond to that, because you would just be constantly accidentally picking up everything in the environment, especially with the gravity gloves. So I built a sort of side system that allows me to manually pick up objects like this, but none of the distance systems respond to. And it also allows me to keep these a little lighter weight in terms of their internal collision and trigger complexity. But we can smash this. Get off my hammer. Collision is so wonderfully glitchy. There we go. Boom. And we can even, if we bend over here, my back. My floor is not configured well. Here, let's see if we can smash one on its side. This one? Oh, there we go. Cool. No. Quality construction. There we go. And we can also pick up the shards, throw them about, etc. So yeah, so this is basically, as I said, these are a bunch of sort of shared systems. Also, I know the collision audio it's just using the generic sound when both whole objects and pieces hit things. That's also part of this this project, is to actually have Joe author a whole bunch of new collision audio sounds for pieces of metal, pieces for wood, pieces of ceramic, etc. As right now, the game's collision audio is basically guns, cartridges, magazines, casings, and melee weapons, and then just generic. So that is being expanded. One of the things that's cool about this destructible system that I'm working on is that it allows me to define sort of sub-destructible elements and pieces. So in the case of this lamp, this actually has a hinge joint for the shade that can move, and it has a bulb. Obviously this doesn't emit light. I can't efficiently draw an arbitrary number of lights, but I can individually blow out that bulb and then eventually smash the lamp apart. There we go. Wonderful. This is also incredibly, let's get ourselves an assistant. Oh, there we go. Hi, buddies. I'm really sorry for what's about to happen. So we can totally just pick up a lamp here.
Jinkies.
And just sort of, broke that one. Let's try this one here. Whack. Perfect. Absolutely wonderful. I got a bright idea for you, buddy.
Oh, darn it!
I'm sorry for this. I'm not really sorry. Really need to get more vegetables in your diet.
Oh, darn it!
Oh, smashed. Whack. So yeah, let's see. So as I said, I showed off the bulbs that can be popped. Yay, spinning capsule collider. Stealing attention. And then even stuff like this, like plants, you know, let's get ourselves like a submachine gun here. That'll be more fun. Do 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 do. Perfect. What a mess I've made over here. We actually have these sort of individual sort of large leaves on the plant that can move around and are jointed to it, which looks cool when you shoot them. But we can also shatter the pot the plant is in. And the plant just falls apart at that moment. Wonderful. So yeah, so these are all just experiments, and as I said, a whole bunch of the effort in doing this isn't just about making them fall apart and be destroyed like that, but actually making sure that it's performance efficient and that you can have a whole room full of stuff that has been blown apart like this without it being an abject performance disaster. So much fun. These things take so long to configure. Oh, are we out? Look at that. I just didn't like the way he wasn't looking at me.
Be over here. Ow.
So yeah, these, let's see, those are just sort of standard destructibles. Even stuff like, say, couches here. Ooh, this is actually another thing that I'm experimenting with. So this is still very much work in progress, and I'm not sure how I like it yet. But one of the things that I very quickly realized is, like, if I give the player the ability to pick a couch up, they can sort of move it around a little too easily. And so I have prototyped in an ability to essentially have sort of inertia or drag on a physical object in terms of the speed that you can move it in. Let me actually turn on my hands here. You'd think after all this time. There we go. So you can see where my hand is in relationship to it, and when I move, there's actually a little bit of drag behind it. But it basically prevents me from, like, fluttering this at high velocity to use as a melee weapon. So I can still grab onto it and use it as, like, an improvised shield and obstruct with it, and I can still, like, check Sosigs with it, like so, but I can't... And I can still do damage.
Tornation.
But I'm obviously not doing it at... It's not like I can just smack him with the hammer. Whack. If we smash this apart... There we go. It falls apart into its constituent parts and pillows, which I quite like. What a mess we've made. So yeah, but I'm still playing around with that. If I like how the inertia system is working and manage to tune it well, I may actually try rolling it out to some of the game's larger weapons to give them more sort of perceptual weight and heft. But that's one of the things I want to explore this alpha. And if I don't like it and if people hate it, I'll just roll it back. And just to demonstrate the performance stability of all this stuff, I'm going to just chuck a grenade into all these. Oh, goodness. Oh, a little too far. Do. Bam! So that was like 30 complex, destructible objects all getting detonated at once. So, good stuff. Yeah. Redecorating. Fun. What a mess we've made. Back into our cleaned up scene to actually show one other really important change. Two, actually, that are in this alpha. One of which is that a number of of SMGs and a couple sort of high fire rate pistols have had this issue where if one is moving in certain directions relative to the gun, the ejecting casings can sort of get caught in or collide with the gun. I have tried to fix this in this alpha. So actually, Anton's gonna make himself absolutely nauseous doing this. Oh, I hate this. Anyway, forward, back, left, and right. You'll be able to see. They now no longer get caught in the gun. You can still get a couple oddities in terms of collision. The nature of collision in a game engine is such that it's sort of projecting any object forward based upon its speed in the world to see what it might run into so that it doesn't go through that object. And so there are certain guns, like if you're strafing to the right, I think firing the Mach 10 or 11, you may still get collision oddities with the casings, but this is as clean as I've managed to get that behavior. So hopefully that should help, because less errant collisions occurring during firing means that it's a lower chance that it negatively impacts your frame rate. Ooh, let's turn that off. Oh, there we go. And then one other thing that's really important for all of our Oculus HMD users, some of you have noticed based upon which system you run and which USB port type it's plugged into and etc., that for semi-automatic firing you may have a perceptually laggy trigger, meaning if you just press really, really rapidly, it doesn't actually give you rapid fire. I have attempted to override the trigger behavior, which you can enable if you're on an Oculus platform. If you set this under platform specific settings, if you set no to yes here for trigger axis override. Note, for this to work, I've essentially had to annihilate any of the nuance of the trigger. It attempts to sort of rebind the trigger up and down events, which I think occur more reliably from a temporal standpoint, to flooding the value up to 1 or down to 0. I don't know how it's going to work on all of those platforms though, so give it a shot. Tell me if it's preferable, but just know that if there was any sort of functionality in the game that relied on a partial trigger press, it will not be available when using this override. This is basically the best I can do until they decide to actually fix a bug that has been present in their API for at least since the Rift S came out, possibly longer. So there you have it. Anyway, let's jump out of VR and talk about the other little stuff that is in this alpha. Yo! So, what else is in this alpha for you folks? There's another little handgun detail that I forgot to show off, but basically for SADA pistols now, when the hammer gets cocked, you'll actually see the trigger move back correctly into that rear position, so it's now much shorter motion between where it is and the final engagement. It doesn't actually affect the trigger behavior, in part because between the trigger bugs on Oculus and just how different the trigger axis mappings are between the various platforms, it's just not feasible for me to do fun stuff like that. It's a bit of a pity that almost no one has paid any attention to making their triggers work in consistent and interesting ways, especially given that in the console space we see such interesting things happening on, say, the new DualSense controller. But this is how it is. What else? Oh, the clean guns and melee button on your wrist menu now also cleans off out any attachments that are not attached to things. Sorry it took me so long to get that in. Talked about optimizing that. The stinger station and the sampler platter has now been moved down to where the heavy weapons are, and I fixed a bunch of the collision oddities that were causing things like the minigun to just get flung into the air on scene load. I have no idea what caused that, nor how long it's been doing it, but it's fixed now. Let's see here. fixed some motion control edge cases, couple pose things, talked about the cartridge thing. I reverted the rock-in loading experiment on the AKMs. It was not as reliable as I wanted it to be, especially in contexts where players sort of had uneven performance or were playing at lower frame rates, which is a larger percentage of the audience than you might imagine. And so I decided it didn't behave how I really wanted it to, so I reverted that. I kept all of the tactical reload changes though. So the new paddle behavior and such, which I do like and is reliable, is staying. And then, I made consistent on the MP5 series, whether or not they have a mag release button on the controller, which they all do not now. Before, some of them didn't, and some of them did. I can't even remember why I did that back in the day, but especially after getting some reference material to see that real MP5 mags do not in fact drop free, and they do have to be removed with your hand. That is now the case on the entire MP5 series instead of just some of it. So that's about it. So yeah, as I said at the beginning of this video, we are in a new alpha series. So this is on the alpha branch. If you're new to alpha branches in H3 and want to know how to get onto them, you right-click the game in Steam, you go to Properties, you go to Betas, click that drop-down and select Alpha 1. You will be on this. Just fair warning, especially nowadays, when I'm working on the Alpha branch, that is not necessarily guaranteed to be super stable. I'm oftentimes making big back-end code changes. If you're running modded, you should expect things to break without warning, just because of the fact that I'm not communicating in real time every single thing that I'm doing with the code base to the folks who work on like the mod loaders and the various mods and things like that. So fair warning, if you boot the game up and you've got a bunch of custom stuff loaded into it and it doesn't work and you're on the alpha branch, that's why. And you might want to clean that stuff off if you want to experiment with the alpha. In terms of what's being done over the course of this alpha, sort of like what are the global goals, they are the new take and hold level. They are working on the sort of destructible prop stuff for future environments that I've been talking about. And then the other big thing that I really want to tackle is, even though it's going to be painful, is probably the item spawner. It's in desperate need of attention. It was a system that worked really well when H3 had like, I don't know, 100 guns total or something like that. But now that it's got well over 400 and tons of attachments and things like that, it's cumbersome. Having only 10 tiles is not good. Not having a search is not good. Not having some tags is not good. I'd like to, and I might look into actually changing the vault format in certain cases. So I will attempt to retain older vaulted stuff. I might have to like split it where there's sort of like a legacy compatibility mode, or even just a way to call up the old vault interface. I'll have to see how that will work. But there were some things that I didn't anticipate wanting to be able to save that I would really like to be able to save. And so if given that there will be other breaking changes with a new item spawner, it seems if I'm ever going to change the vault format, now would be the time to do it. And especially because folks have asked in the past, like, can I save a tactical knife with a bunch of goofy stuff on it? So I would like to be able to save other root objects that can take attachments and not just firearms, which once again requires a different format and requires a different thinking approach in terms of that. So yeah, so that is about it. That's to give you an idea what the sort of the big macro goals of this alpha are going to be. Take and hold level, item spawner, props, and destructible targets and things like that. Part of the sort of unification of a bunch of those systems isn't just for like making them run better and having better sound and being more fun to play with, but also being able to spawn them, save a configuration of them, and recall them. So it's all in the lines towards being able to have configurable ranges and being able to set up all your targets just so blast them away and hit a button and just delete them and reset them as to where they are. But for a system like that to work sanely, I essentially have to bring all of those targets into a unified system so that they're all handling hierarchy the same way, so that they're all clearing their destructible bits in the same way. Otherwise, there's no way to cleanly reset and reload that. So yeah, so that's what's going on. Thanks as always for continuing on this journey through endless system rework, jank, and meandering ideas, as H3 always tends to be. So, anywho, I will see you all next week. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Peace.